Sometimes I come across a movie that I know is special. Even after days, weeks or months, it keeps coming back to me. I think about it, I feel like I need to explore it more, so I watch it again and rewatch it, take notes and find small details and symbols and motifs I missed the last time. So here we are. I watched a film like that and I want you to listen to this. This is the sound of little hammers pounding the feet of the mistress who won tonight's competition. It's a privilege only one can receive in an endless battle between four women. It's a fierce and oppressive way of living, and there's no way out of it. This is Zhang Yimou's 1991 film Raise the Red Lantern. The film, which was banned in China for some time after its release for its symbolic critique of the government. It's arguably the director's magnum opus, which is impressive considering his body of work includes classics like the Academy Award-nominated Judo, international wuxia hits like Hero or House of the Flying Daggers, and he's also responsible for the wonderfully choreographed 2008 Beijing Olympics opening ceremony. Raise the Red Lantern is one of the most beautifully shot films I've ever seen, with its static, symmetrical compositions, distancing long shots and elevated shots, which all serve the purpose of creating the oppressive beast the estate represents. The walls of this prison loom over the characters, the lost souls who serve the master of the family and all that came before him. But behind every intricately staged scene and every symbol, there's something special, an unseen player in this infinite yet futile game of intrigue and deceit, the sound of the film. The hidden character that works outside the constraints of the frame and sometimes even commands the camera for attention. In the very first scene we see the protagonist, Song Lian, played by the brilliant Gong Li, whose father just died, so she's forced to give up her studies and become the wife of a wealthy man. The audio-visual language of the film is established right at this point. A symmetrical close-up of the main character who spreads between the geometric shapes of the background like a bird locked in a cage, while we hear the sound of her stepmother outside the frame who forces her to marry someone. We never get to see the mother. The shot is held for the whole duration of the scene, and like the frame, the character is also rigid and motionless as she accepts her fate. The fate of a woman in the feudal and patriarchal society of 1920s China. In the film there are 3 other mistresses already married to the master of the Zhang family. Every night the master chooses one of them to sleep with. The decision is announced with the raising of the red lanterns in the living quarters of the selected mistress. It also gives them privileges such as a foot massage and the chance to choose the next day's meal. This is what results in a competition between the mistresses who all want the attention of the family patriarch. Arriving at the estate, she is still wearing her white school uniform as she walks around in the desaturated, empty corridors of her new home. And again, without seeing the speaker, we hear the voice of a man. As Song Lian searches for the source, there's a cut where we see the servant observing from above, like a prison guard. This is one of the examples in the movie where the sound directs the camera and motivates the cut. We can also see another characteristic that stays throughout the film. The high walls and roofs fill up most of the frames. Even when the characters walk around the rooftops, the sky only shows on the very top of the compositions. The estate even keeps viewers within its walls. Its architecture reflects the strict rules and traditional values of the Zhang family. As the scene continues, we see these wide shots. The characters walk into the frame each time. It's disorienting. The audience doesn't have any inclination of the layout of the estate. Just like us, the deeper we go into this labyrinth, Song Lian also loses her control. Her senses dull, and she needs to accept the empty life of a mistress, where she has no individuality and no freedom. Jacqueline Loeb writes this in her thesis about this scene. As Song Lian and the servant propel themselves urgently through successive enclosures, we never get the sense that the camera is moving with them. Rather, the montage is reminiscent of that affected by an impassive security system, switching from one channel of surveillance to the next. So far we only heard 2 sounds as they walked, the birds and their echoing steps. But as soon as they arrive at her living quarters, there's a new sound in the background. Water. We don't know where it's coming from, and similarly to the servant's arrival earlier, the audio track dictates the cut. We get introduced to a new character, the servant Yaner. Her introduction paints a good picture of her personality. Unseen, observant, sneaky and jealous. She's the ear that is always listening, hiding behind the walls of the estate to get information about Songlian that might hurt her. The film utilizes silence frequently and effectively, so when there are sounds or music, it's usually for a good reason. For example, whenever the lanterns are raised, the seasons change, or the chosen mistress is announced, we hear the same soundtrack. This segment is used in Peking operas for scenes of struggle and war. The intensity reflects the battle between the mistresses. It's used sparingly and only briefly, but it's one of the rare occasions when the film uses non-diegetic music. The first time this happens and the song stops, we see a hypnotizing montage of the lanterns being raised by the servants. With echoing clicking and bashing sounds, the shots are getting shorter and shorter, until the female servants arrive to give the foot massage that's privileged to the newest mistress. All the sounds are amplified, and with barely any ambience or music, they are much more impactful. Everything is perfectly choreographed. These traditions and customs have been in place for centuries in this family. Songlian is just another piece of this never-ending play. New sounds are added on top of the lanterns. The privilege of the foot massage is represented by the bowl of water and the hammers mentioned earlier. From this point onward, the audience remembers these, and whenever Zhang uses them, we know what's happening, even if it's not visible to us. This is a brilliant way for the director to tell the story and elicit emotions with a very simple filmmaking tool, a single sound effect. It comes back multiple times in the film. The first time Songlian misses out on the red lanterns, we can see her rubbing her feet together in frustration, while the massage is going on in the quarter of another mistress. Another time she is invited to play mahjong, so the master can't find her, and when the hammers start in the background, the audience and Songlian feels the same gut-wrenching sense of anguish, because it dawns on us the invitation was a ploy to make her miss out on the selection. The foot pounding was not only on the feet, but also on the hearts of other wives who were not favored. All this also establishes another thing, the unseen. I already showed how characters appear with only their sound outside the frame, but there's a very important character we never get a good look at, the master. When the master arrives, we don't see his face. In fact, throughout the whole film, we never see a close-up of the head of the estate. However significant his role is here, he is obscured in shadows. A faceless man, the symbol of oppression and patriarchy. Despite him being the sole purpose, these women are here and treated as objects, he stays passive for most parts of the movie. He decides who gets the red lantern for the night, but his decision is always swayed by a mistress or another circumstance. He's a ghost of all the men who came before him in this family, born into tradition. But it's not just people who represent the unseen. In a conniving game like this, information and what happens in secret is also crucial. If you look at the mahjong scene again, this is the point where Songlian finds out about the affair between the third mistress and the young doctor. She's not supposed to look below the table, but she does. Her character is constantly challenging the customs of the household, and in this estate, wherever you look, you find secrets and lies you are not supposed to. The kitchen staff gossiping. The mistresses talking behind each other's back in closed rooms. The forbidden death house on the rooftop. And Yanner's hidden red lanterns and cursed doll in her room. These lie beyond the surface of the perfect symmetries and strict rules of the estate. A world where the facade is no longer intact, where the corruption of the human spirit is laid bare. Sound is a good tool for foreshadowing as well. If we continue the first night's events, we hear anotherworldly, non-diegetic opera singing. Without the viewer's knowledge, this small musical theme refers to the third mistress, the opera singer we get introduced to in the next few scenes, and it foreshadows multiple events. One is the scene where she starts singing early in the morning to wake up Songlian. And the other is at the end of the film, where the singing of the third mistress is mistaken for a ghost. Later on we get another foreshadowing, when Songlian listens to the third mistress and the master from above her quarters, looking at them jealously, and straight after this she finds the death house on the rooftops. The connection between death, being a ghost, and the third mistress is signaled throughout the film. Just as the singing fades, we get the word from the servants of the third mistress that she wants to see the master. Again, only a voice from outside the room. The master leaves and Songlian looks in the mirror, a red lantern in her hand, with tears rolling down her face. She entered the prison of the Chan estate, she consummated the marriage, and now she's part of the dark and twisted game the mistresses play. She wipes the tears away and looks determined to participate. The next morning we even see her wearing a cheongsam, a modern dress developed in the 1920s and mainly worn by high-class women. She gives up her individuality and status as an educated girl. Songlian no more, she becomes the fourth mistress. The exposition is over. It's important to examine the symbol of the red lantern. In Chinese culture, red lanterns symbolize family reunion, happiness and prosperity, which are associated with joy and good fortune. However, in raised red lantern, they are the symbol of power and desire. The desire fire is lit in the red lanterns. While I agree with this examination, in the film I argue the symbol constantly changes its meaning. At the beginning of the film, it's a symbol of desire, oppression and control, but after Songlian decides to play the dirty game, it becomes a symbol of power for the women, an award of sorts. The mistresses line up each day and the servants publicly announce who gets the red lanterns. It's embarrassing, and it makes the mistresses want to win that much more. The fake smiles of congratulations, the visible frustrations of the defeated, the scornful grins of haughtiness, everything is showcased on these occasions. Here they strive to get the red lantern. In this existence, the reward is the attention of the patriarch, and the ultimate goal is to bear a child, more accurately, a male successor. But then, towards the end of the film, the lantern changes its meaning again. But a bit more on that later. We talked a bit about the songs of the opera singer, but we need to look at other instruments too. The flute in particular. Songlian brings her father's flute with her, which is an instrument men used in China at the time. This item represents her family, her creativity, and her free spirit. So when the master takes it away and destroys it, we get another part of her personality stripped away from her. Also importantly, Feipu, the master's son, is shown playing the flute. Songlian connects to him through this sound, representing her desire for a better life, a free life. The non-diegetic flute comes in as their souls connect, but while the audio tells us it's an intimate and emotional moment between the two, we see them in separate frames, confined between the door frames of the estate, cut off from each other on two sides of the building. Before discussing the ending in detail, let's take a look at two crucial scenes where sound was used very creatively. Loeb points out that these scenes disrupt the expected cooperation between the sound and the camera. The first one happens at the beginning of the film's second half. Songlian learns that the second mistress who was friendly with her was scheming in the background all along. She offers the second mistress to do her haircut. The tension comes from two things. One, the viewer knows that Songlian has the information about the true intentions of the second mistress. And two, we see a two-shot of the characters both facing the camera, but Songlian is standing behind her, so we see her reactions and sense that she might hurt her rival. Songlian even says she has never done this, so the second might get hurt. There's a close-up of the scissors where we hear the sound effect of the cutting, but immediately after we get a close-up of Songlian's face, emotionless, contemplating if she should do it. The sound of the scissors continue as we get a wholly different perspective, a shot of what's in front of them, the entrance to the living quarter. Then silence, and a scream. The second scene is the tragic end of the third mistress. After Songlian accidentally tells the second mistress about the affair between the third and Dr. Gao, She's carried to the death house. The scene starts with Songlian sitting in her room, hearing muffled sounds from the rooftop. She follows the servants carrying the third mistress and watches from a distance as they bring her to the death house. There is no accompanying music, only the reverberating footsteps on snow and the sighs of the third mistress. Then Songlian kneels down at a vantage point and we only hear the wind and her breathing. The servants are far away in the distance now, their sounds disappear. We only hear the sharp crackling of the lock and the loud hits on the door from a servant who opens the death house. This take is more than a minute long. The servants disappear inside for some time, then the doors are locked once more and they leave the roof. Now the camera goes back to Songlian, who walks up to the death house. The shots are similar to her first time here, but now we get to see a point of view shot as she is approaching. After minutes of silence, an intensifying opera part starts playing with percussions and the chorus. The ominous and chaotic singing of dozens of women, the lost souls of the past that all ended up in the house of the dead. As Songlian's terror is at its peak and she gets to the forbidden structure, the camera and music cuts. We are once again disconnected from the action, and with an extreme wide shot, Songlian and the building are only a small part of the frame, surrounded by the geometrical lines of the estate rooftop in silence. The low humming of the wind is only broken by the echoing sound of the locks and the haunting screams of Songlian. Songlian's war with the other mistresses and the fatal mistakes she made lead her to realize that ultimately the Red Lantern serves no purpose. It's meaningless. There's no joy in receiving the temporary favors of the monstrous estate. Every resistance, every change in the customs she makes is futile. There is no salvation and there's no escape. How do you escape a prison that has ownership of you as a person, your body and mind? Where you are seen every minute of every day, where you're ordered to take part in the routines of the family tradition, and if you refuse or lose the trust of the master, you're punished by being abandoned and shunned by everyone. For Songlian, all the tragedies happening here and the realization that she has no way out makes her go mad. Or perhaps the only way out of this state is madness. If they own your body, become a ghost. If they own your mind, lose it. The ending of the film is ambiguous to me. The intelligent and free-spirited Songlian is without a question lost and broken at the end of the film, mindlessly walking in this state while everyone acknowledges her as the mistress who went mad. However, two things make me question if she indeed lost her mind. One is that she already faked her pregnancy, which means she is willing to act in order to get her way. And two, her conversation with Yanner before the pregnancy ended like this.
我有没有本事？ 慢慢走着瞧吧。
We can't take this as it's presented to us. Right after this scene she fakes the pregnancy. But what if we look at it as something that characterizes Songlian? She has been fighting relentlessly and intelligently against the mistresses. She even stated multiple times in the film that she is no fool. So I believe it's not impossible that after the killing she chose this fate for herself as a last resort to surrender this eternal struggle. The film ends in the summer of the second year when the master chooses a young and beautiful fifth mistress to replace Songlian. The director once again shows us the importance of his selection of music. The same music can be heard at the ceremony of the new mistress as in the beginning when Songlian arrives at the estate. It's just another Songlian, a new part of the same cycle. The elegy under the high walls and deep courtyards is an elegy for the female group oppressed by the feudal ideology, and also an elegy for the entire feudal era. No matter how you interpret the end, it is without question a tragedy and a total loss of humanity.
人就是鬼，鬼就是人。
The residents of the Chen estate are all stripped of their humanity, little by little, through feudal traditions and corrupted ethics. The film exposes 2000 years of female oppression through symbols, but more importantly through music and sound. Zhang shows us what film as an art form is capable of, with layers of meaning for us to explore, for what is unseen must not be ignored.